Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Bottger. Welcome back to another episode of my album club. As usual, in this episode, I will be here at the beginning announcing which two albums we're listening to, and then we will go and kind of give our initial impressions of albums. Then we'll go and actually listen to the albums, and then we'll be right back to actually give our thoughts on the albums after listening to them. So today with me, I have Ben,
Hello.
Matthew,
I did it 35 minutes ago.
and Santiago.
Hello.
All right. I don't know what Matthew did 45 minutes ago. I'm almost afraid to ask. I feel like the parent of a toddler here, Matthew. I'm
All
gonna
right,
I'm
let's
gonna
get
I'm gonna just be like walking down the stairs one of these days. And I'm just gonna step in it.
it. All right, let's get to it.
All right, let's get to
I'm
it.
excited.
Okay, here are the albums for this week. The albums are Fleetwood Mac's self-titled 1968 album, not to be confused with their 1975 self-titled album. This is their 1968 self-titled album.
Okay.
So that's the first one. And the second one is Badmotorfinger by the band Soundgarden.
Uh,
Whoa. It's only a very interesting pairing here. These albums were released like,
What a weird action album. Yeah,
What?
I don't know what to say
this
about
was
that.
not what I was expecting.
These were released quite a bit. We have like 1960 and like 1991 here. It's gonna be interesting. Initial impressions. We're gonna start with you, Ben. What are your thoughts on these albums going into this episode?
Um, I haven't listened to either of them. I will probably like the Fleetwood Mac album. I think it's kind of blues rock-y, maybe? Soundgarden, I'm assuming it's grunge. I don't even know how to compare these two albums. I mean, I haven't listened to them. But even if I had, like when I do, frankly, I don't know. It's just such a weird pairing. Like, at least the last pairing was a weird-ish pairing, but it was like a lot less weird than this. I mean, I guess these are both rock albums of sorts, but like, they're such different eras. I don't know what else to say. Like, grunge versus like Fleetwood Mac's like bluesy era. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Ben, if you think this is a weird pairing, you better be prepared for the Kiss versus Olivia Rodrigo episode. That one's gonna be wild. Oh,
Kiss versus Olivia Rodrigo.
Spoiler alert.
spoiler. Maybe.
Uh,
All right, Matthew. What are your initial thoughts on these two albums?
at first, when you said Fleetwood Mac self-titled, I was thinking, oh yeah, he's gonna do the 1975 version. And then he was like, oh, you threw me a curveball. You threw me a curveball. So I've never listened to this album before. I prefer the Fleetwood Mac era. I prefer as like 1975 to 1987. As for Soundgarden, I've heard of Soundgarden songs. But most of the Soundgarden songs that I have heard of were from Super Unknown, um, which I think maybe is their most known album. I think, and this is a super recent album. Um, so yeah, let's.
This album's from like 1991.
Is it
It's from
okay?
before. It's from before. You must be looking at some remasters or something. This is from before Super Unknown. This is the album right before Super Unknown.
Okay, so yeah, I've not heard this album before. So I'm gonna give them both of these albums my best shot at it, and then I'm gonna give what I have to give.
All right, Santiago. What are your initial impressions on this matchup?
Well, of course I know Fleetwood Mac, but I only heard the Rumors album so far. So I'm really excited and I look forward listening this one from '68. And the Soundgarden, I don't know. It's my first time reading hearing this group, this band. Um, So yeah, going completely blind with this one.
Santiago, that Nirvana album we listened to several episodes back, Soundgarden kind of
Mm,
sounds like them, but a little bit horror, so kind of like halfway between the Nirvana album and then the Metallica album we just listened to. Kind of like the midpoint between those
oh,
two.
oh, okay, okay, okay.
You liked
Mm.
both of those albums, if I recall, so we'll see what you have to say about
Yeah,
this one.
yeah. Like it's funny that when it comes to this kind of music, I'm always pessimist that I won't like it, but at the end, I actually ended up liking it. So now I'm feeling like that, like maybe I don't like it, but hey, it wouldn't be surprising if I ended up liking it. So we'll see.
All right. As for me, I have not listened to Fleetwood Mac's 1968 self-titled. I don't think I've listened to a full Fleetwood Mac album prior to Fleetwood Mac's 75. So I'm going into this one just kind of like I kind of know what it's gonna sound like. I kind of know what it's gonna be like, but I haven't listened to the whole album before. As for Badmotorfinger by Soundgarden, I first listened to this album in December, I think it was. December of 2023. I've been trying to somewhat increase my knowledge of the 90s, having previously been more of a expert on music from the 60s, 70s, and to the 80s. Um, so I did listen to this album here not that long ago, a couple months ago, but not that long ago, and I quite liked it. I like it better than Super Unknown, personally. I listen to both those albums. Um, I think there's some really good songs on this album. Bad Finger by Soundgarden. I guess I should save my full thoughts for the later part of this video, but I do think this is a good album. I have heard it before, so I think I'm the only person here who's heard one of these albums before.
Hmm.
Um,
Will
so
say that it does have the dude, may he rest in peace, who did the best Bond song.
may he rest in peace. If I also disagree that that's the best Bond song, and we'll do an episode on that one day.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Anyways, so now we're gonna go listen to these albums, and we will be right back to give our thoughts on them. Alright, we've gone and listened to the albums, and now we're back, and we are going to start with Fleetwood Mac, 1968, self-titled album, and we are going to start with you, Ben. What were your thoughts on this album?
I like this album. It's like a nice blues rock album. Um, I thought the playing on it, especially kind of the rhythm section, which I wonder who all in it. It's Mick Fleetwood and McVie. Were really good. I thought the blues rock sound in general was really good for what it is. I guess I do like say blues breaker songs, which I guess is the band that this band comes out of, and like some songs like that. Well, not songs like that. Music like that. That being said, it did feel like it kind of began to like blend together in my mind, but I do think that like the opening track, My Heart Beat Like a Hammer, I think stood out is pretty good. Long Gray Male, I also think stood out to me. Um, but sometimes it felt like all these, even when they weren't covers of like other people's songs, it was kind of like all these covers. It kind of felt like a covers album in some ways, even though I only think that there's like three covers on, oh, four. There's four covers, but two of them are not very well known songs on this album. But altogether, I thought that this album was pretty enjoyable to listen to. I do still like this blues rock sound. It, I think, is a pretty good composition for what it is. I thought the singing by Peter Green, and especially, though also to some extent by Jeremy Spencer, but I think especially for Peter Green, was good. So I enjoyed this album.
Alright, Matthew, you're up next. What were your thoughts on this album?
I didn't like it. I thought it was too like. I think part of it was because I've heard other Fleetwood Mac stuff beforehand, like basically everything 1975 to 1987. And then when I heard this, I was just like, problem I have with the other albums that I didn't like Genesis, the UFO album. Um, I forgot which other ones. They're not distinctive enough. Like it's too like if I wanted to listen to something of this style, I would go listen to something else instead of this. And it's not bad, but I just feel like this is repetitive. This isn't really anything new to the sauce, and it's not really distinctive.
All right. Um, we're going to go to Santiago. Santiago, how did you feel about this album?
It was alright. Like it was not like very good, but also it wasn't so bad. There were some songs I did like it. Majority of the album, it's pretty much like the same sound, But as someone who loves like that kind of music, like blues, I did enjoy listening to it. And as Chris said before, like it has this green sound, and I kinda see it honestly. So I also like that, like quite like it, the clean sound to it. But if I have to choose, I would of course prefer Cream over this album. But it was okay. It was an okay album. So yeah.
Alright, well, that's my thoughts on this album. I'm going to agree with what Santiago and Matthew and also Ben, really, I think what everyone just said. It was like Cream, but not as good, and without really much good like tour parts. The bass and the drum sort of rhythm section's pretty good here, but I didn't find the songwriting to be particularly overly sure. But I think the best song was Long Grey Meal, which Ben already, I believe, shouted out. But this was just kind of like Cream, but not as good. And also, this album was pretty homogenized. It felt like it felt like it was all very similar to each of them. It's also pretty cliche at times. It wasn't bad. It's pleasant enough. It's a solid album, but it's not really much more than that. So yeah, I mean, I think we're all sort of on the same page, yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah,
Would you also say that like Rolling Stones was like blues rock?
yeah. It kind of comes and goes
Yeah,
depending on
I
the
would
album,
rather.
but I'd say that this feels more
I would
sanitized
rather.
compared to that in a way.
Yeah, so I would rather listen to that than this. Like it feels too safe. But like
It feels kind of
even with
like compared to like the early Stones albums, which like comprised of a bunch of covers. Like this felt more like clean, more homogenous, more sanitized than like Rolling Stones' first couple of albums.
yeah, like much like even like Rolling Stones, they have an edge. You know, they were called the bad boys of rock, basically. Especially compared to the Beatles. But this is it's too clean. Um, but also this was their first album, so like how many this acts their first album is like really really good. Like there's not that many.
Yeah. Um. All right. Moving on. The next album is Badmotorfinger by Soundgarden. A much different album than Fleetwood Mac. Um. So we're gonna start with you, Ben. What were your thoughts on this album?
Bad Modal Fingal. This is actually a really good album. I like this album more than I was expecting.
See, there for a second, I
Um,
thought you were saying you thought the album was bad because you put
How
such a
dare you?
big gap in between bad and modal. I was like, what?
You disrespect the first
Badmotorfinger. No, actually, I really enjoyed this album. I even enjoyed like Slaves and Bulldozers, even though I don't usually listen to like doom metal sounding things. Like the songs that stood out to me were the first four ones: Rusty Cage, Outshine, Slaves, Bulldozers, Jesus Christ Posed. Then also Somewhere and Mind Riot. I think all of the ones that stood out the most to me. I thought that unlike the Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac album, which I still enjoyed, but was kind of homogenous. This album was like more fun in some ways, both like in terms of even just like the melodic element, but also just has like a more like deep lyricism and stuff that like we do see in like later Fleetwood Mac album, even though they obviously are a genre very similar to this grunge with lots of metal influences that Chris Cornell is engaging in. But it feels like there's a lot more substance to this album. Just like a lot more substance to it. I do feel like it was funny when I was listening to I think it was Rusty Cage, or was it Rusty Cage, or was it Outshined? Yeah, I think it's Outshined. Let me double check. No, I think that's a Rusty Cage, but it says something like, "I'm going to Stillwater," like still water. My brain was like, "Oh, he's going to Stillwater, Oklahoma." I thought the line in Outshined, "I'm looking California and filling Minnesota," was pretty funny. I oddly really enjoyed Saves the Bulldozers. This wasn't my first time hearing that song, but like I actually really appreciated it in a way that I just was not expecting. I genuinely am not sure why. It just like sounds good. And also, I mean, that's like I don't know. It just like sounds good in a way that like I don't find a lot of singing in that style does. And then of course there's Jesus Christ Pose, which I actually, let's wait for Matthew, and then he and I can discuss that one and try to walk through what it means.
All right, well, Matthew, it sounds like you're up.
Thank you so much. I'm about to bat. I really love this album. I like Soundgarden was a band that I had a blind spot on. I've heard much about it. Shout out to my buddy Zach from this podcast. He's a really big Soundgarden fan, and when I listened to this album, it convinced me to listen to their other album, Super Unknown, which is their follow-up album. I just really like this album, man. Since Ben talked to me about like Jesus Christ Post, I think I really like that. That's probably one of my favorites. I don't know what it's about, but I was just out of the room and I just do like a Jesus pose at random points, like I'm Pearl Jam or Creed. But yeah, I really enjoy this.
All right, Santiago, what were your thoughts on this album?
Terribly boring. Didn't like it at all.
Whoa.
Yeah, anything from it stood out for me. It all felt like the same. It was just boring to me. But that's just my opinion. Because I don't tend to listen to this kind of music, like this kind of heavy metal stuff.
All right, well, I must say, I honestly had no clue what to expect from you, because this didn't seem like the type of music you would like, but you also did like the Nirvana album we did, and this is a little bit harder than it, but this is kind of similar to Nirvana, so I don't know. Santiago out here being the wild card again. You love to see it, I guess, because it does have interesting. I said you always have something interesting to say. You're a wild card panelist. You're the least predictable of us.
Who's the most
Well,
predictable?
what can I say about this album? It's just I just didn't like it. I don't know. I don't have much to say because also I'm not so familiar with this band, this kind of music genre, and yeah, like well, there were some beat beats, like some small parts. I was like finding myself like vibing to it, but at the end, like after finishing this album, I was like, yeah, it was boring. I didn't enjoy it really compared to the other one. You know, it was like heavy metal, I would say. So
It's really heavy metal. It's more grunge,
yeah, I don't
probably.
know. I
Those.
felt it was kind of
It kind of strays
heavy
back and
metal.
it kind of strays back and forth over the line.
So yeah, it was like a hard rock,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like it's just not my thing. I would say, and that's it.
Chris.
All right. Well, yeah. Hold on, Matthew. Um. Okay. Well, as for my thoughts on the album, I liked this album. I had heard of this album before. I think I was the only one here who had. Last December, and I listened to it, and I liked it. I've also listened to the next Soundgarden album, which is Super Unknown, and I like this one better, personally. I think Badmotorfinger is a better album than Super Unknown. Badmotorfinger I think is pretty good. I really like especially some of these songs on here. You've got Rusty Cage, you've got Outshine, you've got Jesus Christ Pose, of course we've obviously talked about that. Here we've got some other ones, Searching with My Good Eye Closed, or whatever the name of that one is, that's a good one. I like Holy Water, that's the one I think is pretty good. Slaves and Bulldozers, Somewhere, I mean those are all pretty, I think, solid songs. This isn't like the main style I listen to, obviously. I'm like a very classic rock guy, but um it's a little bit harder than what we listened to, but it was also like I don't know. I really do like this album. I think it's pretty good. It's like not one of my all time favorites, but I think it's a pretty good album. Um, More than solid, but actually over to like really good. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts.
Would you say would you say of the classic rock you're more like pop or like blues rock?
I mean, kind
Of
of.
like
Although
the classic
I wouldn't really say this album is super um for removed from blues rock and some of these songs really actually um
because I would say the classic rock I like is kind of the more harder like Led Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses. I would say Black Sabbath, although that's more heavy metal. Of course, I do like the Beatles, um, ELO, and Fleetwood Mac, but it's like more like it's not really shocking to me that I really like this album because I kind of
me,
the rock music I
I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan, and this album clearly, I mean, like clearly, like obviously to some degree the vocals on this album all sort of patterned off of Robert Plant in a way, I feel like, especially in some of the slightly more, I guess, mainstream sounding songs. Rusty Cage in particular, I think you can really hear sort of a Robert Plant influence there in terms of the vocal employed. Um, so yeah.
yeah. So this surprise, I really like this album.
Well,
Also, Chris Cornell did the best Bond song.
yeah, well, yeah,
All right, we talked this album to. Let's go who which one we like better.
yeah, I can call. All right, now we're gonna say which album we liked better, every one of us. So, we're going to start with you, Ben. Which of these albums did you like better?
Badmotorfinger.
All right, Matthew, which album did you like better?
Badmotorfinger. I had more fun with it. I didn't get bored. I didn't feel like it was trying to be something else than their own distinct style. I just really like this album, so I'm picking Badmotorfinger.
All right, Santiago, which album did you like better?
Well, I think you know by now, but I will say it anyway. It's Fleetwood Mac. Yeah, I honestly feel like I enjoyed this one more and had more fun listening to it. Like I don't know, like there were songs I was really into it compared to the other album that I just it just didn't stick with me, you know. Didn't feel anything about it. So yeah, I choose Fleetwood Mac.
Um, well, I think you can probably already guess which album I liked better as well. I've got a King Call with Ben and Matthew here. It is a certainly Badmotorfinger. Um, yeah, I mean, I just wasn't too thrilled with the Fleetwood Mac album. It was very homogenized, and Badmotorfinger, if nothing else, is kind of a dirty album. Was the Fleetwood Mac album? Like album cover looks dirty. Blue sound should be a little bit dirty, but it did feel a little sanitized
It's
to
a
me.
dirty album. It's a dirty album.
It's a filthy fucking album.
How,
That's a
how
good
dare!
thing.
It's such a dirty album.
It's a
You
what
sound
a
like a
mean old
parent.
man.
You sound like a parent who's like, their son is listening to Soundgarden. He's like, "Oh, what a filthy album." I like.
I say it is a good thing.
Oh, yeah, I know, but it. No disrespect to the Carpenters, they're good. Um, Also, I would say I actually got bored listening to that Fleetwood Mac song. I mean that album, and I almost quit.
Blue Swan
But
should be dirty, and it just wasn't.
Yeah. All right, who picked what?
Alright. Yeah, now, it's the big reveal. Who picked which album? I hope you all are ready, because it's gonna be, well, I don't know, it might be vaguely predictable. Although I do think some of you might have trouble with who picked, at the very least, Fleetwood Mac. Matthew, who do you think picked, these albums?
You definitely picked the Soundgarden album, and I'm gonna say Ben picked the Fleetwood Mac album.
Alright, well, ding, 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 we have a winner. I thought the Ben one might have tripped you up a bit more, since we don't come across his albums as often. You're right. You're right. I picked Soundgarden, and Ben picked Fleetwood Mac, so, yeah.
That's fascinating. The second guess I thought was Santiago because I was like, but yeah, even flow, baby.
Yep. Well, that certainly was an interesting, albeit somewhat, lopsided pairing there. We did not reach unanimous consent, though, so...
This breaks our streak.
This breaks our streak. This does. Oh well, back to day zero. Anyways, hopefully maybe we'll have something interesting here in the future. And now,
And
now
that's all, folks.
That's all. Well, we're gonna head on
Shout out to
out
Looney
for
Tunes.
today. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode, because I certainly did.
I sure.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, once again, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. That helps me out quite a bit. Be sure to keep your eye out for more episodes of Chris Buckle's Album Club. Go maybe check out some of my other videos from my other series. And once again, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.